Old Sal's Curse. Old Sal's ghost lies in the graveyard, buried in a bottle. Dunstable people tell you with a nod toward the priory grounds. Old Sal had been known as a witch in this ancient English town. She had lived alone in a cottage with her big black cat, a creature bursting with devils. She had galloped through the sky on a stick for a nag. She had mumbled magic words and cast magic spells. Once Sal had been a harmless fortune-teller, but the older she grew, the more often she put the evil eye on those she disliked. Whenever she passed, strange things happened. "Old Sal's a bad one," her neighbors whispered behind her back. "She has dealings with the devil, that's perfectly plain." Gossips wagged malicious tongues. If a horse went lame or a cow stopped her milk, everyone was sure it was Old Sal's doing. "We should drive her out of town," muttered some. People gathered at corners to watch the old woman shuffle by. Her jumbled words and furtive glances terrorized them until they sought out the prior and asked what to do. The prior, who was a humbug, didn't like to admit he had no answer. "I'll say some prayers for you," he told his parishioners. "Only they can protect you against Sal's evil eye." But since dishonest prayers never do any good, the corn still withered in Farmer Pigot's field, little Barbie Perkins still had a wart on her nose, when Mistress Meg fell downstairs and broke her hip, and John Puddlestone's hatchet lopped off his thumb, all Dunstable rose in anger against Sal. This was too much to bear. "Sal's a witch. She must die," the townfolk declared. So they tried her for witchcraft and dragged her to the stake in the market square. "We'll send you to the place where all witches go," they shouted, heaping the wood high about Sal's feet. They lighted the pile. They taunted and jeered at the old woman. Then all at once the crowd's yell turned to cries of fear. With a sputter and a sizzle and a wild burst of flame, they watched Old Sal's spirit rise up and up. From the red haze about it, they heard her screech, "Holy water, book and bell, the black powers of blackest hell shall not destroy me. I'll come back to haunt you all until you give me Christian burial." The townfolk sank to their knees in terror. The prior blanched like an almond. He tried to pray, but the words stuck in his throat. His knees quaked when he saw Old Sal's face peering at him from the clouds overhead. "I'll pray for your soul," he stammered, though he now was sure that Old Sal was a witch. "Only leave us in peace. I'll lay your ghost in holy ground." The prior said this to get rid of the spirit. He had scarcely finished when it disappeared, with a cackle that sounded like the old woman's laugh. That very night the prior stood at the altar and mumbled prayers for the witch's soul. The monks chanted lustily. The candles on the altar burned with clear, steady light. The prior was frightened, though he tried not to show it. The prayer books trembled in the worshipper's hands. "Evil spirit, I banish you forever and ever," began the prior in a loud voice. This was not at all what he had promised poor Sal's departing spirit. "Forever and ever," quavered his flock, following the prior's example. "In the name of," the prior continued, but before he could utter another word, Old Sal's ghost suddenly appeared. It slid through the closed door. It glided up the aisle. Then the apparition stopped near the altar. The red haze that trailed after the spirit swirled through the church. Widow Parsons screamed when her bonnet strings singed on the end. The sexton winced at the hot breath on his neck. "You've broken your word," whispered the spirit so softly only the prior could hear. "I'll not be banished. I am not evil, but until you grant the burial you promised, I shall be. I'll have revenge on you." The prior paid no heed to the ghost, now close to his elbow. Instead, he started to chant again, "In the name of the—" But he got no farther. Before he could finish, the ghost struck his jaw. The prior reeled, then sprawled in a heap on the stone floor. The monks rushed forward to seize the wraith. It cuffed them until they roared with pain. "Curses on you, wicked witch!" screamed the prior, forgetting where he was. He struggled to his feet. He shook his fist in fury. The ghost slid off, chuckling, then vanished in smoke. The return of Sal's spirit set the town in a commotion. Women bolted their doors. They refused to venture out, even to the market. Children screamed in terror when mice squeaked in the walls or magpies pecked at the thatch. "Sal's a worse nuisance dead than alive," complained the men over their mugs of ale. In spite of anything people could do, the ghost visited the priory night after night. The specter terrorized the prior more than anyone else. It tweaked his cassock. It screeched in his ear. One night the wraith even laid a finger, cold as a tombstone, on his shaven head. "I'll not leave you in peace," hissed the ghost. "Never, until you bury me in holy ground." "Not in 1,000 years, stormed the prior, too angry now to keep his promise. "I'll not have such a wicked creature in priory earth." He shot out a hand to clutch the spirit, but it swooshed from his grasp in a scream of scorn. The prior shivered until he almost dropped the good book. The next night and the next and the one after that, Sal's wraith whispered to the prior, "When I was alive, I wasn't really a witch. I don't want to be one when dead. Let my soul rest in peace. Then I won't trouble anyone, so long as no one troubles me. But when I'm buried, I'll haunt anyone who disturbs my grave." A few nights later, a palmer, a monk who had been to Jerusalem and brought back his blessed palm, returned to Dunstable. "I know how to lay this troublesome ghost," he told the prior. "Just leave everything to me." The next day the palmer entered the priory all alone. He lighted the candles one by one. He opened the book and then sat down to wait. Before long the ghost glided up. It uttered a horrid shriek. The palmer wasn't frightened. From inside his robe he drew out a bottle with a long, slender neck and a fat, round belly. He held the flask up for the ghost to inspect. "You're a clever ghost," the palmer said. "You bully and badger. You make hideous sounds. You slide through keyholes. You dissolve into smoke. You whiff through bolted doors as if they weren't there. Yet one thing you can't do, of this I am certain. You can't swish into this bottle, turn around 3 times, and then swish out again. As I'm a palmer, you can't do this." "I can go anywhere," old Sal's spirit sniffed in scorn. "Then prove it if you dare," cried the palmer, holding out the bottle. He turned it around slowly until it gleamed like a jewel in the candlelight. With a noisy hiss, the ghost stretched out like a string. As though greased, the wraith slithered through the slender neck of the bottle. Once inside, the spirit twisted and squirmed. It turned around once, then twice. But before it could revolve a 3rd time and then slither out, the palmer clapped his hand over the open end. He sealed it tightly with some candle wax, then intoned a few holy words. With old Sal's ghost imprisoned, the palmer summoned the prior, who consented to bury the bottle in priory earth. He even said prayers for Sal's everlasting peace. From that day to this, no one has ever dared disturb old Sal's grave. Indeed, no one now living knows where it is. But just to make sure he won't rouse the sleeping spirit, the sexton never cuts the grass in the priory grounds. Tightly with some candle wax, then intoned a few holy words. With old Sal's ghost imprisoned, the palmer summoned the prior, who consented to bury the bottle in priory earth. He even said prayers for Sal's everlasting peace. From that day to this, no one has ever dared disturb old Sal's grave. Indeed, no one now living knows where it is. But just to make sure he won't rouse the sleeping spirit, the sexton never cuts the grass in the priory grounds.